Concierge, a good meal, a place to rest? In the original Greek, this is translated as the love of a stranger. So how do we make a stranger feel loved and a part of our church? Every day, there is a family in your surrounding community that is facing a crisis. A single mom who loses her part-time job, a dad in the hospital because of illness, and mom is the only one with income. A mom in a shelter, and her children are vulnerable. A home is flooded, and there is nowhere to live. These families end up having no one to turn to. They have no other options. For centuries, the church was the central institution those in need turned to. Yet in recent years, the church has stepped back, while other social agencies have stepped in. It's time the church began to live out hospitality the biblical way. Safe Families for Children provides the process and structure your church needs to serve families in times of crisis. How do we do it? Well, when you start Safe Families in your church, you start by educating and building an awareness that there is a need. Then you will begin to notice people that are passionate about helping others in times of need. And they become what we call ministry leads, family coaches, family friends, resource friends, and host families. Host? Hold on a minute, like in my house? Well, yes. Host families are highly trained, background-checked, compassionate families. These families are then placed with a child from a family facing a crisis, helping that family and giving them time to get back on their feet. But wait, there's more. As your ministry grows, we help identify volunteers who can aid and support these families. A church ministry lead acts as the connection point between Safe Families and the church. We also identify family coaches, people that coordinate connecting a family in need with a host family and nurturing that relationship throughout the process. Internally, the DNA of your church will change. Families that were hesitant at first will see others doing it and join in. Externally, it will put your church in a new light in the community as it shows your willingness to show biblical hospitality to others. Join us in helping families in crisis by showing them the hospitality they need in a time of crisis. Safe Families.
Well, good morning, everybody. If you don't know who I am, my name is Beth. I'm one of the pastors here, and I just wanted to say welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. We have an excellent conversation coming up that I am so excited about. I've been looking forward to this for a long time, and so I just wanted to start this morning by kind of introducing this whole topic of what the video we just watched is. And I think out of COVID, we have seen, even pre-COVID, we have seen a lot of families in need. And sometimes even myself, we don't know how to help. We don't know how to reach out. We don't know what our resources are, what's available to people. Maybe if you have a background in social work or something, you kind of have a hand up because you maybe have an idea of what's available. But I think your average Joe, sometimes we see a need and we just don't know where to go. And so this morning, I kind of just wanted to preface all of this by starting with our culture guide. And for the last month or so, we've been kind of having a bit of a refresher on what our culture guide is. And so I just kind of wanted to talk about first, quickly, the 7 things that we believe that we as a church are called to do. And so number 1 is Jesus is our purpose. Number 2 is people are our heartbeat. Number 3 is serving is our honor. 4 is leadership is our call. 5 is generosity is our nature. 6 is excellence is our gift. And 7th is connection is our passion. And so when we discovered Safe Families in Edmonton, we just got really excited because we feel like this organization actually covers all 7 of those culture guide statements that we truly believe that we are called to live out as a church. And so last year, I was actually on Instagram, and I was kind of searching around, and somebody that I follow in the States all of a sudden had kids in their house. And I was like, well, this is weird. She's posting about having kids, but none of their faces were showing. And I was like, well, this is really strange. And then people started to ask her, what are you doing? We know you don't have kids. What's going on? And she started to share about this program called Safe Families. And in that moment, it was really funny because I actually got really sad because I was like, I'm so excited that she can do this, and this is amazing, but I'm also so sad that I don't have that ability to do the same thing here. And so I really, that organization just stuck in my head, and I thought, what an amazing idea. Because a lot of people don't know, but Pastor Dustin and myself, many years ago, we actually started to get certified for foster care. And we had such a passion to see families helped and to see kids have a safe space while their parents were recuperating and getting the training they needed and the help that they needed. But because of where we lived, they actually told us, they were like, you need to wait until you move somewhere else because this house is a no-go. And we were like, that's okay, I guess it's just not our season. So then when we stumbled across Safe Families again last year, I was really excited, and I didn't say anything to Pastor Dustin because I was like, well, I know that like we kind of, we're ready to go, and then it was like, stop, and I don't want to say something maybe that's going to get us excited and not be able to carry through again. But then in the fall, we were actually sitting in a meeting, and the topic came back up, and I was like, hold up. I know this organization. I know what this is here, and I got so excited. Because I really believe that this is something that we as individuals can really use to help our neighbors, to help our friends, to help our greater Edmonton community. And so this morning, I actually just wanted to introduce Elena. Elena is, what's your official title in Safe Families?
I'm the regional director.
Okay, so Elena is the regional director of Safe Families. And so she's here this morning to just share about the program and kind of what it does. But actually, Elena, I just wanted to start this morning by hearing from you. Who are you and what is your story?
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to share about Safe Families. If you get to know me at all, you'll know that this is my thing, which makes sense if I'm the regional director. I learned about Safe Families at a conference many years ago in Orlando. I was at a Christian Alliance for Orphans conference and sat in a session about Safe Families and was like, that is the most logical ministry I've ever heard of. Why have I never heard of it before now? And I came home and I processed it for a bit, and I had this friend who was like, you are going to bring Safe Families to Edmonton. And I was like, oh, absolutely not. I am not, I'm in your corner, I will help you get here, but I am not that person. The Lord is so gracious and patient, and He works in our hearts and gives us time to do things that He calls us to. And so one step at a time, He just said, okay, here's the next thing. Okay, here's the next thing. And so actually Safe Families has only been operational, I should say, in Edmonton for about 18 months, although it's been in Canada for about 10 years. So it started in the States in 2002 and came to Canada in 2012. And now we have 11 different cities across the country that have Safe Families working out of it. But I come to Safe Families out of a foster care background also. We have 2 adopted kids that come from the foster care system whose birth mom we have a relationship with, but is just not able to care for them in the way that she needs to. And that is beautiful and heartbreaking and so many things. If you ever want to talk about foster care, I can talk to you about that too. But foster care pushed me to Safe Families. So we ended up taking care of 2 girls for 2 years who I strongly believe that if she had had some people wrap around her at the time, her kids would have never had to be apprehended. They did successfully go home. After 2 years, she had a worker that fought for her and people that loved her. And she did what she needed to do to be able to get back to a healthy place. But most people that are in crisis just need someone to walk with them. They need someone the same way that all of us do, right? And often within the church, we don't feel it maybe the same way because we have people in the church that you would call. So, for example, I don't have, until 2 months ago, I didn't have any biological family in Alberta. Everyone lived around Canada or in different parts of the world. But I would have 10 people from the church that I could call in any crisis. And they would drop what they're doing, they would help me with my kids, they would bring me a meal, they would do whatever, because that's how the church functions. And yet, there are so many people in our city that don't have that. And so they hit a crisis and they don't know, they fall apart, and then they hit another crisis and they get to this place of abuse or neglecting their children. that if they had had some help in the meantime, maybe it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, and so I think my big question for you right now is, we mentioned foster care, right? And so we know, maybe for the people who don't really know a lot about foster care, and maybe they don't know a lot about safe families, what is the difference between the two? What is the main factor between the two, and are they intertwined, or what does that look like?
So they have similar concepts. The theory of foster care is to reunite children with families. However, often foster comes in too late, which is the mandate of foster care, to obviously not come in and take children, apprehend children until there's abuse and neglect, and that needs to happen. As safe families, we want to be preventative. So we want to come in when there's a crisis and help you before you ever get to that point of needing foster care. So we have different ways that we do that. A family can call us, and we want to just put some wraparound supports in. So depending what the crisis is that someone's going through, we would offer them different options. That being said, the other big difference between us and foster care is that everything about us is voluntary. So in foster care, they come in, they just make decisions for you and say, this is what you have to do to get your kids back. With safe families, it's all voluntary. So apart from me and my other staff, everyone is a volunteer. And even the families, they call us and they volunteer to be involved. There's no mandate, this is what you have to do. There's not, this is how long we have to have your kids for, but we want to walk alongside you, see what it is you need, what are the supports you feel like you need to get to a place where you can function together as a family again.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, because I think as humans, we want choice, right? We don't want to get to the place where now there's force happening, right? The foster care system is, just so different on so many levels, and there's so many layers to it of good and bad and all of that stuff. But what we see in safe families is that it's really, like you're saying, voluntary, right? If I need help, I can say, hey, I need help, without really feeling like, well, what if there's a government file on me then? What if they know that I asked for help? Are they going to be watching me now? Am I going to be a flag, that they have to? So that's kind of, just a beautiful thing that I loved about Safe Families, is that it really is, people kind of meeting halfway and saying, I need help, and there's people on the other side saying, we'll help you, without any, repercussions or expectations or anything like that. And I think as well as, we've experienced in the foster care system, sometimes there's this idea that once you've had a kid in your home for a couple of years, well, maybe that's going to be permanent, right? And in Safe Families, I love that there's no expectation for that. The whole heart of it is that the family unit will be protected, and that the family unit will be built up and made stronger, so that, that's the core, right? That's the foundation of really our world is families. We believe that, right? The foundation of our church, honestly, is families as well. It's built on Jesus, right? And so we believe that families were designed to be together, that when we create a family, that's what God intended. That's the family unit that God intended. And so we want to get behind people and say, hey, we support you, we love you, we care about you, and we want your family to succeed, right? So we've been talking a bit about it, but how does Safe Families, from the beginning to the end of the process? So I guess if you're looking to volunteer, okay, we'll go with that. If you're looking to volunteer and you say, I have been sitting here and I really like what I'm hearing and it's all good, but what exactly is Safe Families? How do you get involved? How do you help? What kind of things could I do? What kind of things could you do? What would they do? What are some scenarios?
Something that I feel like I say this often. Something I love about Safe Families is, but it's because I love so many things. So I'm going to try not to repeat that line too many times for you all. But I love that there's something for everyone. In foster care, it feels like there's this one, you can become a foster family, and I believe that the church should also be supporting those foster families. But within Safe Families, there's kind of a role for everyone. Not everyone should be a host family. Not everyone is in a season that they can do the different roles. And so I love that that can interchange and look different. So for us, Safe Families, the model would be that we would have a family in crisis, and maybe that crisis is that they lost their job and they're worried they're going to be kicked out of their house, or there's been a fire. We have a lot of medical emergencies. Even if you have a family of one kid in medical crisis, a single mom with a kid in medical crisis, it's very hard to get that kid to the hospital for things, and what are you doing with the rest of your kids? So there are a lot of crises can look very different from different people. And so then we bring in a host family. So not everyone needs to be hosted. And so we kind of, the intake worker will like talk and figure out what this family needs. But the host family would be kind of like the foundation of what we were created on. So a host family is like a foster family, but they voluntarily take kids into their home anywhere from one night up to a couple of months, depending on what that need is for that family. We want it to be the shortest amount of time for those kids so they can go back home while giving the parent what they need to be able to function. So right now in Edmonton, we have quite a few families that it looks like respite, actually. It's not a big, long stint where we have kids for. It's, I'm struggling with this and I just need to breathe for a little bit, or I'm going to the hospital for this treatment for 2 days. Can someone watch my kid for these 2 days while I do that? Another example that we've done quite a few of is a mom having a baby and doesn't have someone for her big kids to go to while she's having her baby. It's shocking the number of people that don't just know someone that's like, oh, hey, would you be willing to hang out with my toddler even? So our very first hosting was for 6 nights while a mom had a C-section. And she's like, the neighbor was willing, but I just don't know if she would like, and for 6 nights, like you don't know when you go to the hospital what's going to happen. So we hosted that kid for 6 nights. We brought in a family friend to the point that we came back. She came out of the hospital. We brought in another volunteer to just help get that kid to and from daycare while mom was recovering. We brought someone else in that brought her a meal for a couple of days when she was recovering. And now she's off and running again. She is supported and she got through their crisis. She didn't fall apart. She kept going. And yeah, that just obviously makes my heart so happy. So the host family, then we have the family friend. So the family friend's super versatile. It could look like many things. It could mean driving a mom to an appointment. We have a mom right now who broke both of her feet in a car accident and needs to get to the doctor. That's a very difficult task if you can't drive and you can barely get down the stairs. So we have a family friend that works with her to help her just get to the things she needs to get to recover. It could mean hanging out with some kids for a couple hours during the day. Maybe a family doesn't need respite, but maybe they just need a couple of hours to get to an appointment or to get to counseling or to get to these things that are going to help stabilize them. It also could just mean friendship. So there are an incredible number of people in our city that are lonely. We have one mom who has a 12-year-old son with autism. She had to quit she took a 5-year leave of absence because she needed to help stabilize him and get him into school. And when she came to us, she said, my dream would be that I would be able to go out for lunch with another mom. And I was like, absolutely. But the fact just broke my heart that for her, that was like the goal, was to get to a place where you could go out for a meal with someone and just connect. So we have a lot of family friends that come in for a couple hours a week and just like text someone and ask how they're doing or meet up for coffee or kind of support the way that we would check in on our friends in a very practical way. We also have a family coach. So that's a bit more of a specialized volunteer role. It's someone that kind of comes in and helps oversee the scenario. So if we have a host family and a family friend, helping a family, this person will come in and meet with that parent and also be like, okay, what are the goals that you're working on that we can help you with? So often they have like a social work background or a foster care background or something that just have more connections to the community already to know how to help. So we have this one mom right now who I absolutely love. She's here working on her PhD. So this also, let me shatter that it's not just people that you maybe have in your head as stereotyped that use safe families. We've had 2 moms working on PhDs that are brilliant, that are lonely, and don't have support. So it can be anyone. But she is pregnant and has no one to hang out with her 2-year-old. So we have a host family that's meeting with her regularly so that the 2-year-old won't be traumatized when we take him when she's having her baby. We have a family friend that's just kind of helping her out because her load is heavy right now. She's working as a pharmacy student while she's 34 weeks pregnant. And then we have a family coach who comes in and just kind of helps organize them all. Also encouraging her, so she's from a different culture, so she's terrified to tell her boss that she's pregnant and that needs to have time off, because in her world, she comes from like a war-torn country and she doesn't know what will happen to her. So this family coach is checking in on her being like, okay, let's tell them together, or let's, I don't know, just some of those pieces of, let me help you understand. In Canada, you will not get fired for being pregnant, but she doesn't know that. So just that person that kind of helps connect. They also, if we're doing a hosting, they would also check in on the kids. So we want to make sure everything is really safe, and that, there's eyes on kids. We obviously screen our host families, but also wanting to give extra places that they're being kept as safe and loved as they can be. And then we have a resource friend. So that is someone that is exactly what it sounds like. They provide sometimes physical things, but also could be a skill. So maybe you're a lawyer and could share some of your expertise with a family going through something. We have a resource friend right now who's she's creates daycares around the city, so she really understands daycare subsidies. So she was like, you call me if you have a mom who needs to know how to get a kid into a daycare. I'm like, absolutely I will, because I know nothing about daycare subsidies. But then it also means, I'm sure you do this, someone has a baby or someone's going through something, you bring them a meal, or you build them a bunk bed, because we have a mom right now who is living in an ant-infested house, and so they have found her a new house, but she isn't supposed to bring any of her furniture with her to the new house because of the ants. So she has 4 children and is now supposed to refurnish an entire apartment. So, like, sometimes resource friends, we just send out a message, anyone have an extra bed they don't need anymore, and then we can bring to this family. It could also mean helping someone move. There's so many pieces. If you just think about the people in your life that you've helped or that you've needed help from, it could mean that for any of these families.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I think it's really important to understand that needing help, like you were saying, it doesn't stereotype you. It doesn't make you less than. Everybody needs help. That's the beauty of community, right? We believe that we are called to provide community for people, provide resources, provide help, because that's really what Jesus did that as well, right? He saw people's needs and he met them there. And so this is a really great way to just see people where they're at. And maybe you're sitting in this room and you're thinking, wow, I could really use that. I could use an organization like that. Or maybe you're sitting here thinking, well, I'm pretty handy. I could put a bunk bed together, or I have a couple extra couches that I could get rid of if somebody needed them, and maybe I'll just hold on to them just a little longer. Or maybe, your child has outgrown some clothes and you think, okay, well, maybe I'll hold on to these because maybe I'll do Safe Families, and maybe there'll be a time when my son's socks now fit another baby and, I can pass them along for free, or, whatever that looks like. I think every single one of us has probably been through a time where we needed a little extra support, right? Maybe you've been through a time when, you had to be support for somebody. And I think that for us, this is just a really great way for us to provide a space for people to come, maybe who don't even have a lot of connections, right? We sometimes take our church family, our church community for granted, right? Like you were saying, you have 10 people in your church that you could call at a moment's notice and they would come. But what if you weren't in that spot? What if you couldn't do that? And what would you want to be in your corner? What would you like to have so that you could get the support that you needed? I know that for out of COVID especially, it was really hard for some moms, right? Especially moms. There was a stat that came out during COVID that moms were actually experiencing 75% more anxiety and stress. Specifically pregnant moms and new moms were experiencing 75% more anxiety than pre-COVID, right? And so this is not a time to sit back and say, we're supposed to be isolating. We're not really supposed to be going out and meeting new people and doing those things. No, this is a time to actually lean in and say, we know that there's a need. Even if we can't see it right now, we can partner with organizations that can see it. We can partner with people that do see the need, and we can get on board that way, right? It can be really difficult to know how to help, but when we see organizations like this that are experts at helping or providing that network, right? So it's really important to have this information and say, I know, because we're going to be faced also with people who need help, right? And sometimes, as unfortunate as it is, we can't meet that need ourselves, right? You were talking about maybe somebody who needs some advice from a lawyer. Well, I can't provide that. I can maybe share how to change a baby's diaper, have one of my own, or how to any of that stuff. But I cannot provide legal advice. I can't do that. That's not my expertise. And so it's really cool to be able to join a network and say, I have a specific skill set, I have this knowledge, and I can't meet every need, but maybe there is a need that is there that I can meet, I can get on board with. And so it's really, we want to encourage you guys this morning. This is just a really, really, really amazing way that you can, get involved. And it's not necessarily going to be an everyday thing either, right? Depending on the need in our city, maybe you'll go a few weeks or a couple of months and you won't need to provide anything. And then all at once, boom, it'll be like, well, I'm really glad I was a part of this because this is perfect for me. I can really get involved in this specific way, right? So let me just look at my notes really quick. My phone locked. Let me just peek in here.
And I'll just say, because we're small still, being 18 months in, we are really just working, we're growing. And so we really, as we grow, we would love to be able to partner people closer to where they're based out of. Closer to a church that they could be connected to, closer to those things. So we have a host family right now in St. Albert who has never hosted, not because we don't need more host families, but because we want to keep them also available for when someone near them that's going to be more sustainable can happen. Obviously that doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes we just have to partner someone because someone's in crisis right now. But as the dream is that as we grow, as more churches engage across the city, because we are the Church of Edmonton wanting to serve Edmonton, that we can connect you to, someone that's closer locally as far as sustainability and practicality for your families also goes.
Right. So what kind of avenues, how do people learn about Safe Families when they're in need? And how, where do they get their information from? Where are these referrals coming from?
So at this point, we get a lot of our referrals from the Pregnancy Care Center. We are partnered with them. Also from Hope Mission has a community wellness program that they often are telling us about. We are just working our way into children's services. It's a little bit chicken and egg. We didn't want to get them all excited about us and then be like, sorry, we don't have enough volunteers to actually help. Just because I come out of foster care, I know that all of my workers are like, you just tell me and I'll give you kids off my caseload. I'm like, no. So God is opening the door there also. But that's another place. If you ever have a connection, people can self-refer. I've had someone just Google looking for help and call us. We would love to keep creating more connections. Now that we're a bit more established, it's easier to, people are more keen to learn about us and use us than obviously the first 3 months. They're like, what are you?
Okay, and for 2021, I don't know if you have these statistics already, but what kind of things did Safe Families do in 2021? What were your highlights?
So in 2021, we launched September 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, which was only something that Jesus could do because was not ideal timing, obviously, although I just believe that the Lord has us functioning for a reason. We didn't do our first hosting until the end of March. And so in that year, we ended up with 8 host families screened. We have 22 family friends and coaches. We served 19 families that year. And then we call them bed nights. So anytime one kid is in one bed for one night, it counts as a bed night. So if a family has 3 kids for 2 nights somewhere, that would be 6 bed nights. But we had 85 bed nights in 2021. Starting 2022, we have 10 or 11 current family friend scenarios where family friends are engaged. We've already had 60 bed nights in this year. Also 5 daytime hostings, we'll call them. So someone that didn't need their kid to spend the night, but needs like the day. We've done, sometimes that's a bit different. So we're just tracking those different. So the need is there.
Yeah.
And for people to keep learning about us. They're
Absolutely.
that way.
Yeah, so as we kind of just wrap up here, we want to get involved, right? We want to, when we're sitting in our seats, we're like, that sounds amazing, but like, what do I do? And for our church, we believe that we need to, like we've said it before, we need to meet people where they're at. It's part of our culture guide, right? We started with that. It's part of what we believe is the DNA of our church. And James 1, verse 27 says this: religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this, to look after the orphans and the widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. And so we believe that this is what we're called to do. We are called to meet families in their needs. We are called to meet the orphan. And an orphan can take many different forms these days. I definitely, in the last couple of years, have felt like an orphan when, there was a screaming baby in my lap and I'm crying, and then suddenly she's not in my lap, she's over there because I don't know if I can hold her for any longer, and who do I call? And when family, we were living in Cochrane, and it was, family's 3 hours away and the other family's not available, and what do we do? And I just thank God that there were people in my life from my church that I could call and say, help, I can't do this, somebody, and they were like, bring her on over, we'll hold her. And then when I got there was coffee and tea waiting for me, and they were like, you sit over there, take a breather. But I don't know what would have happened if that hadn't been available for me, honestly. And that's kind of a vulnerable spot for me, because I think we all like to pretend that we're okay 100% of the time, but we're human, and that is just not possible. We cannot be okay 100% of the time. And so when we here have our family around us, whether that's by blood or by church or whatever that looks like, maybe you're new to this country. Maybe you don't know what's available here. Maybe you've been burned by the church in the past and you don't want anything to do with the church anymore, and you're scared of maybe what that looks like and getting involved in that. And I think it's so important that we can join with people who are bridging that gap of maybe they're not willing to come to us, and that's okay, because we can go to them. Absolutely, every time we can go to them. And so I kind of wanted to just end with this question, and that is, what can we, sitting in these chairs right now, in this moment, what can we do as a church or as individuals to support Safe Families better, to get involved and to just, have you kind of at the forefronts of our minds?
Yeah, so first of all, I would say, when you pray for us, it's incredible. This is not, it can be heavy work, and it's also not big and glamorous. It's really fun to be able to tell you 2021 stats, but sometimes the day-to-day of just walking with a family, it's not glamorous, and yet those connections, that relationship is kind of where it all starts. So we're working with this Muslim mom right now, and we are an outright Christian organization. We love Jesus. All of our volunteers love Jesus. And so she's like, but please tell me why you're willing to have my kid for 2 nights when no one else in the city is willing to do that. And so well, it's because of Jesus. And how do you feel if we're hosting your kid on a Sunday, how do you feel about that kid going to church? Because we want them to experience Jesus, and we want them to actually find their healing in Jesus and not from us. And yet we are not here to push that on anyone either. And so she was like, no, absolutely, it's fine. So that kid is actually now coming to youth at the host family's church, because that kid just needs some connection in his life. And she's like, if you can find connection there, go do it. So there's this there's a lot of spiritual heaviness that can also help. We are working with families that are in crisis. They're struggling, they're broken. And so prayer is amazing when you think about us. We are also working to actually start partnering. people to pray specifically for a family that's in crisis. So you won't maybe get to know a lot of details about that family, but just knowing that there's someone praying for that family kind of daily is something that we're working towards. Also, serving as a group can be an amazing thing. So you may have like one of these volunteer roles that you're interested in volunteering in. We find that we're the most successful when there's multiple people serving one family, because sometimes there's just a lot going on. You can't be that person for all the things like you were saying earlier. Like we can't serve in all the ways. And yet the mom right now that we're hosting for her baby, her toddler, there's a family coach that's helping her with some of the like goals she needs to work on. There's a family friend that's coming over and putting ice on her walk because she can't shovel it. Like they all just can have their piece, and then it doesn't actually become tiring for anyone. Everyone can do their piece and work that way. So you can serve as a group within your church even. You can serve as someone that just signs up to be one of the roles and will connect you with other people that are working with someone that way. So we're obviously always looking for more volunteers as we grow. So it also is a little bit anticlimactic, I will tell you. We screen you, we train you, and then you sit and wait so that we can match you the best to what your skills are, what your capacity is, what your availability is with the families that are in crisis. So most of the time it's not like you're screened today, we put you in tomorrow, although it has happened once or twice. But to just be available. I think the Lord really wants this for us in lots of areas of our life, to be available to when He wants us, and so that's kind of the model we use too. Also, we're fully funded through donations. We do apply for grants from time to time, but as a Christian organization, that is a bit trickier to find funding that way. So we actually have a fundraiser coming up in 2 weeks, March 11th, that you're very welcome to join us. It's an art auction, so it's a silent auction where we'll share more stories about what's happening with Safe Families. And also you could buy some locally made Edmonton things. So that could be art for your wall, it could be some crafty things. I do have pamphlets at the back if you want to know more about that or any of these things that you could register for. And also, I will say this other thing, that on April 9th, I don't have a slide for it, but April 9th we are going to do a training day. So if you are interested in becoming a volunteer in any of those roles, there is online training we can definitely just send for you to work on at your own pace, but there will be an in-person training day April 9th to hopefully do and to connect with other people. We want to serve together in community too, and so that will be coming up also.
Amazing. Okay, so if I was sitting in my chair and maybe I wanted to donate to support your organization, what would be the best way to do that?
So at the back table, I have little cards that have a QR code. It's super fancy. If you know me, I'm not fancy technical. I can't even say that.
Yes, that's okay.
Technology and I are not like awesome, but we have a student that made us a QR code that will take you directly to the donate page.
Okay.
It also will. There's a QR code that you can sign up for the newsletter or to just tell us, I want to learn more about this role. Would you be willing to chat with me or have someone chat with me about it or get started on any of that paperwork? That's that way. Or you can also just come talk to me. Jeremy is here. He's on our leadership council from Safe Families. He's also so happy to chat with any of you about Safe Families.
Awesome. So just in closing, we wanted to say thank you so much for just listening to this. Anytime that anybody can get involved, we know that this blesses Safe Families, and we as a church believe that Safe Families really is one of the ways that God is reaching the Edmonton area. And so when that's the case, we want to get behind these ministries. We want to say we support you, we love you. And I just wanted to say thank you so much, Elena, for giving your time this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and so at this time, we're actually just going to watch one more video, and then we'll close.
Had my son, my anxiety was getting really bad. I wasn't sleeping, I was trying to eat properly, but the wrong medications that I was on, my anxiety was getting worse and worse and worse and worse, to the point where I couldn't handle anything. And there was nobody really to reach out to except for Children's Aid, so I called the intake people and talked to them. And that was out of like severe desperation because I wouldn't want Children's Aid to be involved with me. The lady that I talked to on the phone, she said she knew about Safe Families because the only other option was to put my son in a foster home.
I received a phone call from the Children's Aid Society informing me of a mother who had just had a son 3 weeks earlier, and she was really struggling and needed some support. She needed help not only with her son, but just a break while she was able to work on some of the health issues that she was going through. We were able to find her a host home, a family friend, and people who were able to rally around her, to love her through this time, to care for her son, and to help her back on her feet.
When Safe Families came into my life, I was very surprised by the amount of help that they were offering me. And it wasn't judgmental, it wasn't unnecessary in any way. Like, it was very nice and caring. When Greg came to my house and he understood, how much I didn't want to be separated from my son. It was just amazing. Like, he came to my door and he was helping me with the baby, and he was very understanding as a father himself.
As a host home, we had an infant with us, so we were able to just continue on with our daily routines and daily life. He just kind of joined in all our family activities. We took him to family birthday dinners, and we took him to a wedding, and he just was part of the family for those weeks that he was with us.
I was still kind of nervous about the whole thing for a little bit, but I just kept getting told, this is like, we're like your family, just treat us like your family.
On top of the mom getting support, we also had support given to us. The first night, I don't think I slept at all. The next night, we had our family coach come over, and she actually spent the night taking care of the baby so I could get the sleep and be functioning the next day.
I was very lucky because the host mother, she gave me her cell phone number and she texted me, and we got to talk about Toby. So it wasn't like Toby was gone and I couldn't see him or hear about him.
We were able to go to the doctor's appointments with the baby and birth mom just to get the information that we needed and make a connection with the mom.
Just amazing. Like, they came and they helped me out, and Greg picked me up. We all went to the doctor and everybody got filled in on Toby. There were lots of practical things that Safe Families offered. When Greg came to my house and he came to my door and he was helping me with the baby, and then he's telling me I'm getting a family friend, and I'm like, I'm getting a family friend? Like, who? That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, I'm getting a friend too?
I was the designated family friend, and I didn't really know what that role entailed. But I thought, okay, I'll start and contact her and have coffee, and we sort of worked out, I think, the different schedules, what her needs were.
I got a lot of support from Mitski too. Like, she'd even bring us cupcakes, and I was like, wow, you're bringing me cupcakes? Like, thank you so much. Like, that's very thoughtful.
If it's just making a pan of muffins and bringing them over and say, look, you know what, I'm here for you.
It's helpful to have someone care about the little things that you have to do, because they're not little.
I think as a church we're called to take care of others, and so this is the perfect opportunity to show that love and to have an outlet to pour out Jesus' love on others.
It's a really good life experience to have, to work with other people. It's a really good way to step out there and perhaps be a little braver than we would be normally.
Greg had talked about it like a blanket kind of experience, or coming a circle, like coming around the family, and it really was like that.
In working with Adriana and her children, it made me more aware of generally all the needs around me.
My life is dramatically different now. The support I got from Safe Families has stayed with me in my heart. God really helped me not only to have Toby, but to have a situation where I could have a stronger, better family.
Safe Families is a very practical way to show biblical hospitality in the spirit of 1 Peter 4:9, and also to live out the royal law as mentioned in James of loving your neighbor as yourself. So if you're interested in getting more information about Safe Families, or better yet, volunteering with Safe Families, reach out to us today. Email us at london@safefamilies.ca.